This is Sleeping in Trees, the audiobook. Chapter 10, Monkey House. Monkey was an interesting member of our crew. He lived catty-corner across the street. His family had relocated to our neighborhood from Germany. Surprisingly, my mom informed me one day that the family's last name translated to our own. This meant that, clustered together in 3 adjacent homes, lived 3 families named Brown. It was another oddity I added to an expanding list as I grew up on Vista Lane. Monkey was a quiet one. He didn't say too much. We were never sure if it was a language issue or if he just didn't have much to say. He was also wiry and had long arms, with nary an ounce of fat anywhere on his body. While he was very strong, explosive really, his athleticism was a mixed bag. It seemed that his motor response and coordination were only vaguely connected. When he took the football on an end-around run, we could count on speed and a journey of reckless abandon, but were never entirely sure which route or direction he would ultimately take. He could score a touchdown, dragging 3 tacklers with him, or careen dramatically out of bounds. If a fly ball headed his way, it was a flip of a coin as to whether or not it would find his glove or the crown of his head. He was also proud, principled, and would never back down when challenged. His smile could really light it up, too, with a great set of straight, pearly white teeth that would make any orthodontist grumble. His dad was a serious pilot, a captain, and flew the biggest jets in Pan American World Airways fleet. I admired his lifestyle a great deal. He would be gone for a couple of weeks, traversing the planet in jumbo jets, surrounded by a bevy of lovely stewardesses, and then be home puttering around for the second half of the month. It struck me as a dream job, really, working what appeared to be part-time, but enjoying the compensation and rich benefits of a full-time employee. My conclusion was that he was a very smart man, a smooth operator for sure. Although he seemed to have copious amounts of free time, I didn't see much of him. I often wondered where he was and what he was up to for 2 weeks each month. Monkey's dad was also, at times, a source of some irritation for my own father. It was not uncommon for him to stride across the street on a Saturday morning and into our garage, as preparations were clearly underway to head to the club for yet another regatta. He'd chat up Dad with the usual banter about the relentless heat and his latest flight overseas, and the exotic ports of call he had visited, while tillers, centerboards, and sails were being loaded into the back of our Pontiac station wagon. Then slowly, with a lustrously polished approach, delivered on a bed of fine silk, he would work his way around to the point. His dear wife and he had a pressing engagement that very day, and he wondered if it might not be too inconvenient for Monkey to tag along with us for a ride to the club. He wouldn't be a bother in any way, he would assure, and if he got hungry, he'd be more than happy with a peanut butter sandwich. The crafty character knew darn well that there were no peanut butter sandwiches at the club. It would be a delightful cheeseburger and fries instead, and Nutty Buddy ice cream treats, and at least 4 Cokes from the snack bar by the pool. Of course, Dad would oblige. Monkey's dad would often then mumble, as he backed away with a smile and a wave, that his wife and he might be a bit late that evening, so if they weren't home by dinner, the boy would be more than satisfied, one would have guessed, with a peanut butter sandwich. All of our neighbors were well aware during those times that the Steak Charmer Research and Development Department was in full swing at the Brown house, and peanut butter sandwiches were not on the menu. The neglected and abandoned young boy would end up with another delightful Saturday at a yacht club on Biscayne Bay, replete with a full menu of fun and games in the outdoor pool beneath swaying palms. The certainty of a steak dinner would hopefully soothe his bruised psyche and temper his feelings of abject abandonment. On another day, Monkey's dad might swoop into our driveway on his German racing bike, again seeking out Dad. Once located, in the friendliest of tones, he would explain that he noticed upon his return from Tokyo that his grass had gotten a bit bushy. My dad would nod quietly, doing his best to conceal a grimace. Monkey's dad would then ask if it might be possible for him to borrow our lawnmower. Though Dad had the big red Toro, which never started, and I recall seeing in operation only one time, we also had a small push mower for cleanup work, emergencies, and, apparently, Monkey's dad. With a laugh and a hearty slap on the back, he would also note that he was a little low on gas. He'd been overseas and all, and hadn't quite gotten around to filling up his own can. Could he borrow just a smidgen? Dad would offer up a pained smile, oblige, and quietly retreat into the house. Late in the afternoon, the mower could be found back in its appointed parking spot in the back of our garage, its gas tank as dry as the Sahara. Monkey's mother was a tough little spitfire. She spoke with a stilted staccato of German mixed with broken English. Like her son, nary an ounce of fat could be seen on her person. She was deeply tanned and could have passed for a piece of beef jerky in a pinch. She would move around the area like a high-speed dervish, on the very cusp of breaking into a sprint as she pressed Monkey and his sisters to ultimately do what must be done. Chores and homework filled their young lives. She would hover over their shoulders at all times, making sure they completed the task at hand. I'm not sure which endearing label is better suited, slave driver or pile driver. One could imagine then the frightening response to the thoughtless indiscretion by Monkey one Saturday afternoon. Next to the pool on their patio was a small bathroom. It was secured with a slatted wooden door. Monkey entered it and seated himself on the commode. Directly in front of him was the door. It happened that he had a small pocket knife in his possession. As he sat patiently and waited for nature to take its course, he popped open the small cutting blade and carved a tiny notch in the door. With another poke, he made it a little larger. Soon he was twisting the pointed blade, whittling and twisting and whittling some more. Before too long, both tasks were complete. As he exited, he was himself a bit startled to learn that he had bored a hole completely through the door. One could now sit on the commode, peer through the new viewing hole, and monitor all the goings-on in the swimming pool. His dad was ferrying passengers high over the Atlantic that day. His mother was not. In fact, we observed her chasing Monkey at high speed in 2 full loops around the house that afternoon before they both careened back inside through the front door. We heard banging and slamming sounds, and there were loud voices within. Following a good strapping, he was grounded for weeks, providing ample time to putty and repaint the entire door. He did a good job of it. When they moved into the house, a family of 5 with 3 bedrooms, Monkey had to share a room with one of his sisters. This worked smoothly when he was a gangly 10, but as the teen years arrived, other arrangements would have to be made. One Saturday morning, I trotted over to Monkey's. Egress was always through the garage for young boys in our neighborhood. We rarely entered any home through the front door. Always sadly enshrouded were we with a grimy reputation of dirt and dishevelment. I was not sure at the time if front doors in our neighborhood were even operational. So seldom did I see a single soul use one. As I popped into his garage, there stood his father, before a modest pile of lumber, apparently on furlough following 2 tedious weeks flying around the Orient. He looked at me and then to Monkey, standing silently off to the side. In a hearty and authoritative voice, he put forth that he would be building Monkey a new place to live. In the corner of the garage, he planned to construct a berth of sorts out of $43 worth of 2x4s, plywood, and carpenter's nails. I was speechless, as was Monkey. His dad set to work. Over the next few days, Monkey's new bedroom took form as it grew modestly into what could be best described as a hobbit home for a small animal. It was nothing but a wooden box, with a short bunk bed high up against the garage wall and a small desk tucked in below. There was a reading lamp with a single bulb and a small wooden chair. That was about it. For ventilation, heat, and air conditioning, Monkey would enjoy whatever climate existed in the garage. 3 steps inside his new living quarters, and one was presented with the bunk. Spin around, and within another 3 steps, one stood yet again in the garage, conveniently in front of the washer and dryer. When I first saw Monkey's new living space, I was reminded of World War II war movies we sometimes watched on Saturday TV. Prowling Nazis toiled away hundreds of fathoms below the ocean's surface in damp and oily submarines, with living quarters perhaps slightly larger than his. It was impossibly small, and I was concerned that an error of measurement had been made when laying out the dimensions of his meager bunk. Monkey was approaching 5 feet in height at that point, and I did not believe the length of the bunk exceeded 4 feet 10 inches. This was an egregious miscalculation by his dad. To expand the bunk was out of question, since the entire left wall would have to be relocated, and there was simply no room for that. Where, pray tell, would his dad park the yacht-like Chrysler Imperial? I noticed that when the car was tucked in for the night and the garage door closed, the tip of the hood actually rested lightly against Monkey's bedroom wall. When his dad pulled in and nudged the wall, he knew it was time to shift into park. If Monkey were to have a sudden growth spurt, not unknown to adolescent boys, I considered that 2 holes could be cut into the wall at the foot of his berth so his feet could extend outward into the garage. The crew and I laughed more than once about the possibility that, after a night of revelry, his parents might roll a bit too aggressively into the garage and careen straight into Monkey's bedroom. The wall would collapse, of course, and Monkey's bed might become a slide, depositing him abruptly onto the warm hood of the big Chrysler. If your pet raccoon had escaped and taken up residence underneath the house, what would you do? Ask a couple of 12-year-old boys for a solution? Not recommended. This is Chapter 11, and it's called Raccoon Roundup.